In this video, I want to highlight the importance of fast playing a made hand on a whiteboard texture to give our opponents a bad price to call. So in our lectures, we talked about playing with the best hand, and when our opponents are potentially calling with a drawing hand, we want to give them a bad price mathematically. So we don't want to give them a good price to call. So let's go ahead and get started with this hand. I have pocket nines. It gets folded around to the small blind. He makes a min raise, and I make a 3-bet, and I like this 3-bet because his range could be fairly wide. Now, in regards to flatting versus 3-betting, it really is villain dependent, and it's based upon the type of hands that they're going to play and the type of hands that they're going to open in the small blind for a min raise. But typically a min raise in the small blind is a bit of a weakish hand, probably small pocket pairs in the weaker Broadway type of cards. And so I like this 3-bet here. And when he goes ahead and he flats, I think that a majority of the time, I think he has those medium type of Broadway hands, not the premiums, but the lower ones, and some, medium type of pocket pairs. I think he could have been raised pre-flop too with suited connectors as well, but I think the lower end of the suited connectors, he's probably just going to go ahead and fold, and he's only going to call with the higher ones like the Jack 10s, the Queen Jacks, and so forth. So let's go ahead and see what we flop. So I think we always flop the best hand here. And let's talk about what beats us versus what we beat. So I went ahead and already typed this in. A 5-6 beats us with the straight, but does he really ever call a 3-bet out of position blind versus blind with 5-6? I think rarely, so I'm going to remove that from his range. 6-10 is never going to be in his range. I think that's just too bad of a hand. Jack 10, yes, that's going to be in his range a majority of the time, especially Jack 10 suited, and then so this hand beats us, and then also pocket 8s and pocket 7s, pocket 10s, and sometimes pocket jacks. Those are all going to be in his range as well. We beat all those hands, and then we also beat draws such as a Queen 10 or a Queen Jack where he has a gutter straight draw. So I don't think this is in his range, and I think that these hands are in his range, and out of the hands that are in his range, only Jack 10 beats us, so we have, 16 combos of Jack 10 that beat us if we're thinking both suited and off suited, and then we have a ton more hands of Queen 10, Queen Jack, pocket 7s, pocket 8s, pocket 10s, and pocket jacks, and he may even have, let's say, pocket 6s where he has an open-ended straight draw. So we beat all of these hands, but they all have equity against us to suck out on us. And let me go ahead and pull up Equilab, and we'll plug that range in. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pause the video, and I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I went ahead and I populated everything into Equilab. I gave him this specific range, pocket jacks, pocket 10s, pocket 8s, pocket 7s, pocket 6s, Queen 10, Jack 10, and that's both suited and offsuit. And then I plugged in our hand and I plugged in the flop, and I evaluated our equity against his range. So we're roughly around a 70% favorite, 68.15 to be exact, and he has roughly 32% equity in regard to this range. So in regards to our bet sizing, we don't want to give him a good price where he has pot odds that are less than 32% and even close to 32%. We want to bump it up high, so we're giving him really bad pot odds. So let's go ahead and see what happens on the flop. So he throws out a min bet. So typically when a bad opponent that micro stakes throws out a min bet, they're pretty much saying, hey, I want to get a free card. And so they're preventing you from bumping it up and raising it. And what this tells me is that he's always drawing here, where he has a mediocre type of hand, and he doesn't want to see you raise it up. He wants to see the turn literally for free, and meaning for 5 cents, so for one big blind. And so what we do is we pot it. And I make a pot size bet. And I actually think that this is actually still even a bit small, given how much equity he has in his range. So when I make a pot size bet here, he has 2-to-1 pot odds. And so, when he has to call 74 cents or 75 cents into, let me go ahead and add up that with my calculator real quick. So we have 0.75 plus 0.79. So $1.54. So he has to call, 75 cents into there, which gives him that 2.05 or 2.88, which gives him 32% equity. And so we gave him a right price to call, but let's assume that I'm actually going to reduce his range a bit further. When he min bets, I'm going to take all the sets out of his range here, because I don't think that he's ever min betting with 8s or 7s or Jack 10. So I don't think he's ever betting that with a made hand. I think he's actually betting a lot more with the made hand. And so I think his range is either an overpair, and actually I don't even think an overpair is going to do that. So I'm going to remove 10s and jacks as well. And so let's remove even further. I think pocket 6s for an open-ended straight draw. I think a queen 10 and a queen jack are the only type of hands that are in his range. And so let me slide Equilab over in so you can see it. So I think this is really what his range is mainly composed of, because if he has a set, he's not going to bet 5 cents into 70 cents, and he's not going to do that with Jack 10 because there's a flush draw out there, and he's also not going to do it with, the made straight draw on the lower end or the higher end. So I think any made hands are out of his range, and if we go ahead and reevaluate his equity, he only has around 22% equity. So when we make this raise here to a pot size bet, giving him 32% pot odds, it's going to be a minus EV call for him. And so hopefully that makes sense, because if we plugged in all of his made hands plus all of his hands that aren't made, then it's pretty much a break-even call. But when he's always on a draw, it's the exact opposite. So he calls, we get a blank on the turn, and he just decides to jam all in. And when he jams all in here, I'm never folding. I think this is always him on a draw. So I make the call, and the queen hits the turn, which is not the best hand in the world for us, but let's go ahead and show his hand. So he ends up showing up with 10 queen suited. And so like I said, I eliminated all of his made hands when he made that silly men bet on the flop where he's saying, give me a free card because I'm on the draw, I have a weak hand. And so, when he has that type of a hand, we have to give him a bad price. And then when he jams on the turn, that's just a fishy jam. Now, from his perspective, I think he does have decent implied odds to call to suck out on me. But when we have a hand this strong, we just have to fast play it. So hopefully that's useful and that helps. Now let's go ahead and, just for the sake of fun, let's go ahead and evaluate his equity on the turn when he jammed all in. So when he jammed all in, he only had roughly about 15% equity. And so, I'm a huge favorite there against his range. And once I put him on that range, I'm never folding. And I'm always going to be calling him with top set on a blank 4 on the turn, especially when he just flats the flop. Now, granted, he could have played very exploitively with the Jack 10, but even if he does with the Jack 10, we have redraws to suck out on him to hit, either an 8, a 7, a 9, or, potentially whatever hits the turn as well. So anyways, this has been Alton with MicroGrinder.com. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Just remember, the moral of the story is if you put your opponent on the drawing hand, it's a really wet board texture, and you have a really strong hand, you have to fast play it, and you have to give them as bad of a price as possible to call while still extracting value. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next video.